Hello, it's nice to see you out there again. So, before I get into the second half of this review, I want to get some stuff out of the way. First, I'm sorry that I've not uploaded anything for a while now. I should be taking this more seriously, and I will be continuing to. Of course, I'll continue the challenge, but I plan on being more proactive with my consistency in uploading videos. But I also want to say at the same time that I have read multiple books in the series, in the list, before I have finished this second half of the Seven Habits review. So, with that in mind, I will be making videos for the series, two more reviews after this one. And I don't know if I'm going to space it out over the course of a week or I'm just going to upload them when I finish them, which implying that, like, all three of them within like 2 days or something. But know that more is on the way and it's going to be very soon. Another thing is, I'm sorry if this doesn't look particularly fashionable, but I think that the audio quality in these videos has been very lacking, and I wanted to address that. I have actually had this headset on the table right here, and I would speak into the mic. If you look on the past videos, you can see the microphone. But the distance in which this is louder or quieter to my voice is quite extreme. So this is just going to have to do because I think the quality of how audible my voice is more important than this headset looking kind of dumb for the reviews. So, with that mostly out of the way, I don't think there's anything else I need to mention. I think it's time we get into the second half. Oh, wait, yes, there is one more thing. Uh, this review second half would have come out earlier, but and I could have made the second half earlier, but I already had the second half of this review recorded, and I am re-recording it now because while editing the second half of this review earlier in the month, it was corrupted. The audio and the video corrupted, and I could not recover it. But I think that's kind of a good thing because something I wanted to work on in these reviews is being more concise with my wording. I have a tendency of saying sentences slowly, and it makes editing really, really long and tedious, as well as it's just not very engaging to the viewer. So now I think I have everything out of the way. Alright, jumping back in with Habit 4, think win win. Now, Habit 4 and Habit 6 share a lot in common, and you'll see those correlations once we get to Chapter 6. But with Chapter 4, it introduces the win win table, and what it is it has four quadrants, and it's going to be win, lose. And then whichever way that it falls into those quadrants, that's what the visual is. And the idea behind it is that there are four ways of looking at any interaction with people. There is win-win, lose-lose, win-lose, and lose-win. So going over these real quick, win-lose is when in an interaction, whether that be in your day-to-day life or something involving business, it really doesn't matter the context. Win-lose is when you are in an interaction and you are the sole person that has something to gain from your interaction. Either the other person is losing or simply not gaining anything from it. They are sacrificing a part of themselves just to help you. Lose win is the opposite version of that. The book describes this mostly being a proponent of guilt that you feel, where you will sacrifice a lot of yourself and your time to solely benefit the other party, the other person that is in this example. And it's also not that good for interactions in general. And then lose lose, similar to what you would expect, is the most parasitic and unfortunate of the four interactions that you can have. It is when there is some great emotional disconnect between you and the other party in mind. And similar to war, I hope this does not come to war for you, where just people are being lost on every side. And on a smaller scale, you and the other person in the context of the situation either have like a hate for each other, some deep emotional disconnect, something to where both of you are losing part of yourself or part of your material value to the interaction that you have. And it's gone over more in part 6, chapter 6. the idea of win-win. Win-win is what you should absolutely always be aiming to do, no matter what, when you're talking to somebody, whether you're in the business world, etc. Win-win is when you take what you need inside of yourself to seriously consider what the other person, the other party wants and needs. What's their basic worries and desires? And you are able to formulate an agreement between the two of you where both of you, and you verbally tell this to each other and you come to this agreement, are able to benefit from your interaction and go farther than you went in with. Chapter 5 was one of the most beneficial to me as of my first reading. It is seek to understand, then to be understood. So yes, this chapter was my biggest revelation because I have had a tendency in the past to disconnect myself from people in my surroundings, whether that is my closest family or friends at school, something like that. I generally have been a pretty not social person, or I will push myself away from interactions with people. But at the same time, just like everybody else in life, I wanted to be understood by other people. And there was some low seething anger that was not being met by anybody. But the idea behind this chapter is that you should seek to deeply, at least to the best of your ability, which is farther than you can probably imagine, you need to seek to understand and empathize with somebody, their worries, their doubts, whatever bothers them or makes them happy, and to truly be considerate and be able to essentially say back what they were thinking, what they told you, better than they could. It also introduces empathic listening. There are different stages of listening, and empathic is the highest, where you're not just simply saying back what they told you, you're not just simply listening, but you are able to rephrase what they told you, and they can confirm whether that is better than they could have put it themselves, or if you got something incorrect in it. This also had a very quotable quote in it that I absolutely took to heart, and that is, to influence, you must first be influenced. Truly spectacular. This chapter gives a couple examples in terms of his children. The one that stuck with me more was he yelled at his son, and his son was very upset with him, and he realized that he had made an error in his judgment, that his son was not pestering his other kid, but was actually trying to help him because he was bloody or something. And instead of becoming defensive as a parent in his poor judgment, he asked his son, "Why won't you forgive me?" Because his son says that to him. And he listens to his son and allows him to explain what he had done wrong, and they are both able to benefit from this interaction. His son trusts him more at the end of the day because he helps him, and the father is able to take their interaction farther and understand what he did wrong. Alrighty, chapter 6. Like I said before, this one has a lot of correlation with chapter 4, but it essentially takes the win-win portion of chapter 4 and makes it into its own chapter. And it is called Synergize. So synergize is the idea of 1 plus 1 equals 3 or more. And this is then taken into the business world, your personal interactions with other people. He gives a lot of examples in this chapter as to how it applies to the business world especially. I will not be going over all of them because they tell the same story but slightly different. One of the longest and most impactful for me was the law student story, where a group of law students, the way that they were going to be able to graduate and move on into their career was they were planning to have them do this project that they've always had done. But they brought in Steven to help them with it, and he gave recommendations on how they can interact with each other rather than having to work on their own, and being able to interact with people outside of people that are in the project, and allowing them this freedom to be able to work with other people. And through this process, and it's a very long story, so I'm abridging it quite considerably, they allowed the kids to synergize, and what would have been a half a year project, they were able to accomplish way more than what was expected in a matter of weeks. They then rose the bar more as to give them more challenge, because they were thinking, what did we do wrong? Why was it so easy for them? And within a couple weeks as well, they were able to meet the second higher, harder deadline through being able to synergize. And synergy applies to anybody and everything that you interact with on a daily basis, whether that be family members, friends, business, like the chapter goes into quite a bit. And another example is this married couple that were having marital issues, and they asked Stephen to sit down with them and listen to them talk to each other and slowly root out what was wrong between the two of them. And as the conversation goes on more and more, they become more antagonistic of one another. And by the end of it, Stephen says, "Do you, sir, know how you made your children?" And irritatedly he says, "Yes, of course I know how." And he responds with, "That's amazing. You took one and one and created four." They had two children. And the point of that is that I'm not going to say it on the channel, is the most basic and natural way that humans synergize throughout our lives. But we're able to do it on an emotional level through just simple conversation and empathic listening and applying all the others to really achieve something that's higher than you went into it even expecting to reach. And it describes this feeling as being just absolutely amazing. And the idea behind it is that, or not the idea, but something that sort of comes as a side product of it, is that there are going to be some times where you and the people or person that you are synergizing with won't even be talking in full sentences, and you'll be communicating so much information to one each other because you're just on some greater level of understanding for one another, and you will come out having accomplished something you didn't go in expecting. And now chapter 7. This was also a super impactful one for me as of the current moment on my first read, and it's called Sharpen the Saw. So it starts off with a little story about a man walking through the woods. It's from his perspective. And he eventually comes along and finds a lumberjack who is blood red in the face and is going to town on a tree with a saw, and it's clearly dull. And he says, "Don't you think you should take a break? You're very red in the face." "Well, I don't have the time to. I've been working on this thing for 5 hours." "Well, if you were to take a 10-minute break and sharpen your saw blade, you would be able to get more done once you go back to work." "I can't. I don't have the time to sharpen the blade. I'm too busy." And just that simple story communicated so much to me. And it goes into more detail on how self-care is a lot of what the final chapter is about. And it puts it both mentally and physically. He recommends that you spend time meditating, and you spend at least 30 minutes a day exercising. And the idea behind this is that it can seem like in our busy lives there's not enough time to do things like this, to spend time just in your backyard listening to the quietness of it all, or exercising, stretching, yoga, whatever suits you. It may seem like we're just too busy to do that, but 30 minutes, the difference between your physical and mental health between 30 minutes and no time spent at all is astronomical. And you'll find yourself, I say this because I feel this way having done it now myself, you will begin to want to do it more and more than just simply 30 minutes. But as he explains, we hardly don't have the time to fit in 30 minutes to just take care of ourselves. And that amount of time, the 30 minutes, will be able to become more spacious because the amount of time you spend caring for yourself allows you, when you are working or going to school, whatever your occupation is currently, your output is able to be greater because you are sharpening the blade of your saw. It's such a simple concept, and it just makes so much sense, but it took a slap in the face, at least for me, to actually to fit it into my daily routine. And I think a lot of people in today's time especially could benefit a lot from taking care of themselves physically. Another thing is that when it comes to taking care of yourself physically, for example, it also takes care of you mentally. And the reason why, which is something that's explained at the end of the book, is that every single one of these um, every single one of the habits is deeply intertwined with one another. You are able to work on one habit, and it will naturally benefit you on the other habits that you make. And the same thing goes for taking care of yourself physically. It helps you mentally as well. So, wrapping this up, this book was absolutely spectacular. I will be reading it in portions again here soon, or sometime in the future where I feel like I need it. At the beginning of the book, it explains that you read which habit you feel like you need at a given point to refresh yourself and use it as a tool rather than just simply something you read through once. I will definitely be doing that. This book taught me so much about myself that I didn't even know consciously, and it has helped me benefit. It has helped me push myself and my interactions with others to new heights that I never even imagined. And it also has helped me be very excited at the simple idea of just being alive. It sounds kind of stupid saying out loud, but I think a lot of people can attest that it can feel so mundane to just push through normal day life, and it can be very suckish sometimes. But maybe this book will do the same for you. Everybody has something or a potential something out there that will make them feel just so vibrant and ready to go tackle the world. And at least one of those for me was realizing stuff about myself with this book. So I definitely recommend it to everybody. I don't think there's a single person I wouldn't recommend it to. There are sequels to this book, and I will probably be reading them on my own time. They're not part of the challenge, so I'll be prioritizing the book in the challenge before those. But I'm definitely impressed. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I will give it a very good out of 10. Very nice. Alrighty, and that'll do it for this review. I hope you enjoyed, and let me know in the comment section if my more direct and concise attempts at being more concise are working or not. I definitely would like to know, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you.